Okay. Actually, I was going to kind of start out with a joke. So there's this camera right here. I don't know if any of you have been watching the remote feeds, but I had the privilege to actually watch Paul as he was giving his keynote on Monday. And I noticed that that camera was activated, and it's just kind of interesting seeing the backside of the speaker instead of the front side of the speaker as he's giving his address. And I was trying to think of a joke that would go along with it, and frankly, anything that I came up with is kind of tasteless. So if you have something that you would like to bring, that's great. I'd love to hear it. But I'd like to, that worked out really well, didn't it? So what I want to talk about today is about what ARIN is doing, and it's an interesting place these days. So with V4 runout and the various strategies and dealing with in policies, dealing with V4 runout, how to encourage people to do with V6 is as well as dealing with AS numbers, going from 2-byte to 4-byte. AS numbers is an interesting time, and all these things are actually occurring all at the same time. And so it's an interesting place to be. And also, these things actually affect you guys. And I know that there's some of you that actually cross-pollinate from the NANOG meetings to the ARIN meetings, but not a lot of you. But most of these things actually, as users of this space, these things do affect you, and I encourage you to be a part of this process. So what I'd first like to talk about is our outreach efforts. And ARIN actually participates in various venues, many venues that we're not really a part of. And it's amazing to hear about the lack of knowledge that people have. It goes from, what do you mean we don't have infinite supply of IPv4 addresses? I could keep on going forever. I don't need V6. That costs me extra money. And sort of encouraging people to, hey, you really need to start looking at this. This is an important thing to do. Same thing goes with 4-byte ASs. Actually, we're trying to eat our own dog food at ARIN, and we have V6 enabled internally on all our boxes. And when I connect to various boxes to do my work, it's all over V6, and it just works. And what we also have is we have a West Coast facility that we're peering with, and we're willing to peer with anyone that's that's willing to receive a 4-byte AS. And ours is 393220. So if you want to peer with us on West Coast, please, we would be interested. Matt Reinzek's back there is willing to talk to you. We have a couple of people who are doing this now, and so this is great going forward. And again, we're trying to eat our own dog food. And this kind of goes beyond just regular users. This goes along with governments as well. Governments are starting to get interested in this because they hear about this whole idea of shortage, and they feel like there's this sort of compelling need to regulate the space. And how is the best way of doing that? And we've been spending a significant amount of time actually educating various government entities on what is ARIN's role in this and how governments can actually play along. Another thing that we've done to kind of help bring this whole idea of V4 runout to up front and center to various organizations is that we sent out an announcement to over 15,000 organizations that V4 runout is indeed occurring, and that you should be planning for V6. And as an added benefit, now you have to, when you get space from ARIN, you need to get an officer of your company to actually sign off on it before you get the space. Whois Cleanup Project. Everybody knows that Whois a haven for spammers to get your email addresses and use it for various nefarious purposes. And consequently, people have allowed their information to atrophy. And there's been various policy proposals that have been put on the floor to say, hey, we really need to fix this up because this is almost non-useful. So we need to go ahead and fix this. And so the first thing that we've done out is that we are sending out emails about 2,000 a week to various people, say, hey, look, you need to update your records. Please come to ARIN and make that happen. And we're currently estimating this to be 4 months to actually complete. As part of the policy that we're actually following through on this, it also involves reassignments. So that phase 1 is actually direct assignments where we have actually an existing relationship with our customers. The second part, reassignments, is actually your relationship with your customers and actually registering that information with us. And part of this policy is actually going out there and actually contacting them as well. And this is something that you should be aware of and say, hey, look, I really need to start cleaning this stuff up. Revoked address space. ARIN spent a significant amount of time over the last number of years actually to say, okay, look, you guys aren't paying your fees. We're going to go ahead and revoke your space and reissue it to someone else. And you can see here that we've been quite active in making that happen. You can see the amount of space that we received here. And we've been very careful in making this happen in terms of, okay, we're making sure that this space isn't routed. And if it is, we work with those people and say, hey, look, you really need to pay up. Let's get together, make it. It's a nominal amount. So come on, guys, let's get going on this. And if everything fails where the space is non-routable, the people are non-responsive, it stays in a sort of a holding pattern for a year, and then it's reissued. Recovered ASs. Same thing goes with recovered ASs. You can see that here's the number of ASs that have been returned, including in this is both 2-byte and 4-byte. A number of people at the earlier stages received a 4-byte AS, and the code wasn't quite ready at that point, and people said, look, I really need to use something operationally here. Give me a 2-byte AS, and I'll come back some other day for a 4-byte. And one of the things that's, now that code is actually available and working, that should no longer be the case. So hopefully you guys can actually start looking at this and again, encourage you to use a 4-byte AS. I'm going to talk to about stuff that's actually near and dear to my heart, and that is various sort of engineering activities that we have going on within ARIN. We have essentially 5 different aspects that we're actually looking at here. One is upgrading our existing services that we're calling ARIN Online, and this is actually a movement to move things onto the web off of a template-based system using email. And one of the things that this gives us is a much better sort of authentication model in dealing with you guys. Because right now, this whole idea of using email leaves a lot to be desired from an authentication perspective. We're also looking at improving the IRR system. And right now, I know it doesn't understand anything about V6, and this isn't so good. And we have a couple of people actually in-house right now that are focusing on upgrading the system and integrating it with our existing database, and hopefully we'll have something up by the end of Q3 this year. So we will be able at that point support V6 objects within our IRR. Next thing is improving WHOIS and our WHOIS. We have a couple different facilities right now. We're distributing our WHOIS clusters East Coast and West Coast, and have a lot more boxes and using a lot more redundancy, things that we've learned from VeriSign, where I used to work, and actually putting all those things together so you would have a lot more availability. Matt's team, the operations team, has done a great job of making all that stuff happen. And as an advanced sort of billing, you could say, we're actually looking at a replacement to WHOIS, and there's various proposals on the floor. There's this one effort that's been put out by the ITF called CRISP, and there's a service that VeriSign and a number of others put out. It's called IRIS, which is a replacement to WHOIS. That might be one option. Another option may be using some sort of web-based, RESTful-based service that we're actually looking at. We're building internally, and hopefully we'll be piloting sometime over the course of this next couple of months. Next thing is RPKI pilot. We've heard a lot of things about, hey, look, about route hijacking. Doesn't happen a lot, but there's this, still we have this glaring hole. We have a pilot that's going to be available very soon now, and we're looking forward to putting that out and having you guys actually test drive it. And the final part is the DNSSEC rollout. We're doing that again, will be available first part of July. What I'd like to do now is show you just some of the things that you can do with ARIN Online. And you can see here that one of the things that we're trying to do is make this whole all this information that you're currently managing, sometimes well, sometimes not so well, with tickets and so on from ARIN. We're actually creating a management tool for you on the web. And as we move these services from email into the online system, this information will start being integrated within the ticket system. And you can see here's a screenshot of what currently exists on ARIN Online. And as you go into the ticket details, you can see information in terms of, okay, what's been going on in the correspondence, who's responded to whom at what times, and so on and so forth. So you have all this information readily available on the web. And one of the other things that you could do is you can actually easily update your POC information and your organization information on the web right now. And as we do this, one of the things that we like to do is we like to start taking back those templates and saying, okay, look, this stuff is on the web, go ahead and make this happen. And this is going to be true for all those things that are kind of one-offs, things like organization templates and POC templates and so on. This does not involve SWIP, which is a lot of people have automated, and we like to start working on a solution for that, but we're not going to be dealing with that immediately. But it's something that we're looking forward to actually replacing as well. Who is? You can see that we're just like every other part of the internet. We're just growing, growing, growing. And we had some peaks here at the end of last year where we're seeing over 120 queries per second, which is actually not too bad. And the system was able to handle it without sweat. Next thing that we have going on is the RPKI pilot. You can see here is we're calling it resource certification. This information is actually, thanks to RIPE, we're actually taking their code and porting it within our system. And it's a first part of a hopefully multi-stage process in putting this information together. And it will allow you to actually start playing with these things, issuing things called ROAs and seeing how it can actually validate within your systems and so on and so forth. So all this information will be coming very, very soon. And finally, what I want to talk about is DNSSEC. DNSSEC is actually coming. We're very close to, we're doing our testing right now, and we're going to be signing the zones that we're authoritative for, all the /8s. You can see a couple examples, 24.inatter.arpa all the way to 216.inatter.arpa. And we're doing this in two phases. Phase one is actually signing the zones, and we'll be rolling this out on July 1st. And the second phase is actually inclusion of DS records where you in turn can let us know that your zones are signed. And that is dependent on the provisioning system that we're putting within ARIN Online. And we estimate that to be ready by first quarter of 2010. And you can see the specifics at that website or at the URL at the bottom of the screen there, or at the bottom of the foil. And you can actually follow that, and you can get the trust anchors and everything else that you need. It very much is following the RIPE model, and they've been doing this for about 3 years now. So all this stuff is fairly well formed and mature, and we're ready to go. One of the other things I'd like to talk about is the policies. As I mentioned before, ARIN is in interesting times right now with V4 runout and V6 adoption. And there's just a lot of information that's going across, whether it goes from directory services, hey, we need to have better data accuracy, and that kind of brought forward this POC cleanup that we've put out. The other thing is V6 for community networks. Should they have a special exemption for a space? Global IANA to RIR V4 policy. How does IANA actually allocate space, recover space that's been given back by the community, given to IANA, and how does it come back to the RIRs? Making sure all those things that were somewhat informal are making them more formalized now. Transfers, that actually is embodied in ARIN's policy 2009.1 right now, which was actually a little bit controversial because it had, there's a policy that was put in place last year. The board actually had these emergency provisions that they invoked. There was a little bit of churn dealing with this, and then there was, actually it was good to see that the community came together and said, okay, this isn't quite right, this is what we want, we'll put it together, what you guys have made is pretty close, and they made the modifications, and now it's a policy. Dealing with V6, dealing with multiple discrete networks, this is actually a hole in the policy framework right now, and needs to be fixed. It's there for V4, but not for V6. Extending the life of 16-bit or 2-byte AS assignments. Paul Vixie, did he come up with a term of byte? How many bits in a byte? And the final part is that there's a lot of talk about what to do with V4 runout, and should we start actually giving out less space as we get close to the end. And is this a good idea? And that is, again, sort of a controversial sort of thing. It extends the lifetime of V4 by how much? I don't know. But the whole idea here is, hey, look, we got to start moving to V6. People might need a little bit of V4 to bootstrap. Again, but that is just a little bit controversial. Next thing is dealing with participation. We really do like to see your voice being heard within ARIN. In the fall, the meeting in Dearborn, we're going to have a joint meeting. And given that the weighting matters are going on, I know most of you guys don't follow policy or care too much, but it does affect you. And there's also things that you say, golly, you know, ARIN's an evil place. They have all these evil policies that, you know, I have to follow. They're draconian and all this other kinds of hoo-ha. Well, this isn't really, we're the ones that actually are implementing these policies, but you are the ones that are actually putting these policies together. And if you don't like them, come to the floor and help make these things better. And we would really encourage that. And to actually follow through on this, if you're an ARIN member, it's free for you guys to come to the ARIN meeting. They have great food, so you know, if you want your belly filled, that's another way of doing it. And the other thing that we have is a fellowship program where we have one person from each region. We have essentially 3 regions: United States, Canada, and the Caribbean islands. And in each of those regions, we actually will select a person from that region to come to an ARIN meeting where all the expenses are paid. And again, all this information is available on the web at the URLs down below. So again, this is a very open, ARIN's a very open place. We'd love to have your input. We'd like to go forward. We want to do the best for the internet, and so on and so forth. So any questions? I'll put you guys to sleep. All right. Well, thank you.